Welcome to today's showcase of scientists and those heading religious organizations who were awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. Mother Theresa has already been featured in the Heroines of Peace showcasing women who were awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. If we assume that mankind has a right to survive, then we must find an alternative to war and destruction. These words were said by Martin Luther King Jr. in his acceptance speech when he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. This has been the message of each and every Nobel Peace Prize laureate, including those who came from a religious sect and worked ceaselessly towards establishing peace, and those that brought the benefits of science to establish peace. In accordance with the conviction that the will of God could be revealed in silent contemplation by every human being, the Quakers developed a special kind of Christian pacifism. Quaker pacifism meant that the light of Christ should be transformed into positive action by individuals, families, social groups, races, and nations, thus creating an atmosphere of peace that would make wars impossible. The Quakers were not only pioneers in their call for European political unity and ecumenical cooperation between Christians, they also took up an early engagement fight against intolerance and social justice, which were looked upon as major roots of war, an attitude which explains the broad and industrious Quaker engagement for social and political reforms. Already as a student, the theologian, distinguished organist, and doctor of medicine, Albert Schweitzer, decided to dedicate his life to humanitarian work. The Nobel Committee especially appreciated his cultural philosophy, reverence for life, which served as an ethical principle for his humanitarian efforts. In his view, the individual must constantly look beyond all that knowledge and science have created and penetrate to the elementary. The free human being seeks the joy of being allowed to care for life and avert suffering and destruction. In 1970, the question of bread and peace was put on the Nobel Prize agenda once again when American scientist Norman Borlaug won the Peace Prize. This Iowa-born expert in genetics is known as the man behind the Green Revolution of the 1960s, which brought about vastly increased grain yields, first in Mexico, then in India and Pakistan. In 1946, when the committee strongly favored John Mott, the YMCA leader, it seems that they generally preferred candidates who could serve as moral and religious symbols in a world threatened by social and ideological conflicts. When Joseph Rothblatt was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1995, 50 years had passed since the atom bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. But it was 52 years since Joseph Rothblatt had first taken a stance against the development of new weapons of mass destruction. In his opinion, science and research should serve the cause of peace. In 1962, the prize was given The atom bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki were a turning point in Linus Pauling's life. Together with other scientists, he spoke and wrote against the nuclear arms race and he was a driving force in the Pugwash movement. In 1959, Linus Pauling drafted the famous Hiroshima Appeal, the concluding document issued after the Fifth World Conference against atomic and hydrogen bombs. He was one of the prime movers who urged the nuclear powers of the USA, the Soviet Union, and the Great Britain to conclude a nuclear test ban treaty, which entered into force on 10th of October 1963. On that very same day, the Norwegian Nobel Committee announced that Linus Pauling had been awarded the Peace Prize that had been held over from 1962. Linus Pauling is one person who has been awarded 2 undivided Nobel Prizes. In 1954, he was awarded the Nobel Prize in Chemistry. 8 years later, he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for his opposition to weapons of mass destruction. So, in today's showcase, we get to meet the scientists and political leaders who worked ceaselessly towards establishing peace on earth. It is hoped that all scientists and all religious heads would use these messages, these timeless messages, to increase their existing efforts, and those who are still sitting on the fence are motivated and inspired enough to follow the calling and work towards peace on earth.